Okay, another bonus video. We're going to talk about location of your business. Remember, location, location, location. They say that in real estate all the time. It's also true for your business. You have to make sure you're in the right spot at the right time. Location is critical. Okay, one of the main things when your location is the demographics of the area there. You got to think about who you're going to be looking for. What is the income of the area? If you're out there selling retail, you want to make sure it's an area that has good income. If you're looking for more labor, you want to go to a little more remote area, maybe outside a high affluent area. You're not going to get a lot of workforce there. So think about your workforce too. What do you need to be successful? Do you need labor? Do you need sales? Do you need marketing? Do you need IT people? Think about all that kind of thing and think about what's the competition for labor in that area. And if there's a lot of competition for labor in that area, then of course the cost of labor is going to go up. So you have to really evaluate when you get your first place, how you're going to do it, what's going on there, what's the demographics, who do I really need, who do I think I'm going to need in the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and really think that through before you just go find a place that's cheap, because finding a place that's cheap is not good. So if you end up in an affluent area and you're looking for people to do labor, stuff envelopes or whatever, you're gonna have a hard time finding those people, right? They're not readily available. You might get some high school kids or something, but to get an employee that's dedicated and you're in an affluent area, you're not gonna really get a lot of labor there. If you're selling ice cream or something, you want foot traffic. You want to have access, maybe if you need a lot of employees, to public transportation. If you're gonna sell something, if you've got a retail store, you gotta have good parking. The major problem when you don't have parking, people just go somewhere else. If they can't find a parking spot, they go somewhere else. How many times have you pulled into a restaurant or something and you see, oh, it looks like it's crowded because they don't have enough parking, and you go somewhere else? And then major roads. Or if you want foot traffic, you got to be near the major roads. But if you want shipping and receiving, you want to be near the expressways. So make sure you sit down and think about everything you're doing when you buy your place. What about accessibility to your place? Let's assume you got a small manufacturing company. Do you have enough loading docks? Is there enough parking for delivery trucks? Are you near the major highways? We learned kind of on the hard side was we moved to a company that was a little bit way out there, and it was cheaper, and the real estate taxes were cheaper, and I kind of thought I got myself a good deal. And what happened was I couldn't get as much truck access. So I had to know, I think, by about 10 in the morning what kind of trucks I needed. If you're closer to major metropolitan areas and you're closer to expressways, you can probably go to 3 o'clock and still get trucks in there. And everything's a today delivery, right? So if I lost 5 hours, that was a big problem. So we had to start planning much more in advance. And when I had emergency orders from my customers, wasn't able to fulfill them all the time because I couldn't get a truck in here. Think about lead times. You buy a building in the middle of nowhere, you lease a building in the middle of nowhere, trucks don't get out there that often. It just takes longer to get there. And your rates get higher. So it's kind of interesting. When you buy, if you're like, we're in the Chicago metro area. If you're close enough to Chicago within 45 miles or so, you get the Chicago trucking rate, which is lower. If you go outside that radius, you have the trucking rate that is higher. So you're saying to yourself, well, I got cheaper taxes and my rent's cheaper. Well, guess what? Every shipment you make is costing you. So you have to evaluate it. Don't just look for the cheap rent. It's not always the cheapest rent for sure. And make sure that your location matches your brand. If you're going on high-end stuff, make sure you get a nice building. It's clean. It's got air conditioning. The carpet's clean. Take care of your facility. Next is the competition. If you're doing more of a retail, is it easier to get in and out? Do you have good parking? Do you have access to trains? Is it easy to find? If you got a place that's hard to find and nobody can get there, then they're just going to go somewhere else. It's too easy to go on your phone, say, oh, I was going to buy pizza from, I can't find that place, I'm going to go somewhere else. What's the next closest one? And if you got too many businesses in a certain area, you may have to lower your price, you may have to give more promotions. So try to go to a place that doesn't have your business. Remember, fill the niche. We were talking about fill the niche. If you're the next pizza place and there's 5 within a block of you, you're going to have a hard time doing it. And other factors, look at crime rate, right? Look at regulations and rules. Sometimes when you get into certain cities, they're not as friendly towards maybe ovens or manufacturing or whatever it is. The proximity where you live, that's important. A lot of time in the car is wasted time. I mean, you can be on your cell phone talking to people, but make sure, a lot of times when you start your business at 6:30 at night and you have an idea, you might want to run into the office real quick. That happens all the time. Saturday afternoon. If it's a 45-minute drive or an hour drive for you and you got these great ideas, you got to jot them down, you lose your zest for it. You'll be going in and out of the office a lot when you first start. Ask the village, what about future area development? Are they going to put an expressway through here? Is there going to be an exit ramp of some sort? Road improvements. If you're going to have foot traffic and all of a sudden the road is going to be torn up for the next 2 years and you're not going to have any foot traffic, it's going to be impossible to get to your business, you're going to fail. We're very familiar with someone who started at one of these yogurt places where you put the stuff on top and you weigh it, and now all of a sudden they had road construction, they weren't aware of it, closes business. It's too hard to get to, people just went to the next one. What's the history of the area? Is it on the uprise or is it on the downswing, right? Be careful about that. Are the jobs supported by one industry? In other words, if you're going to go to like a Detroit, Michigan, where everything was based on the car industry, and something happens to the car industry, if you open up a sandwich place next to a plant and that plant closes, what happens to you? Again, we talk about the eggs in one basket. Be very, very careful that with the surrounding businesses. Try to find a nice diversified area. Location is critical. We've talked about that. Well, how about lease or buy? Everyone's first instinct is to buy. I want to pay anyone else's mortgage, right? That's a bad instinct. First, start with a lease. Lower your risk. Remember, we're on the RTR, reduce the risk. Prove the business first. You don't know what your needs are. When you're starting out, you don't know if you need 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet or 10,000. You don't know because you're in this mode of, if I hit it, I'm going to need people. What am I going to do? So if you bought something, now you got to sell something, right? It's a terrible way to go. So at the beginning, start with short-term leases. Try to get as many options on the lease as you can. So strategies for leasing. Tip number one, of course, you got the price. Rent should never exceed 5% of your gross income. 5% is a good number, never above 10. So check your industry, see what you're comfortable with, see what's your cash flow like now, and say, what happens if I take $1,000 a month out of my business? What does that do to me? Maybe I should stay in my basement for another 6 months. Don't be, a lot of people are very anxious, they want their name on the door, and they want a building, and they want to feel like I'm a real business, so to speak. You're a real business already if you're getting going. So don't let those shiny things fool you. Stay as long as you can in your house, keep your overhead low, keep your things. You could start with people working out of their homes at the beginning, right? And you can Skype and whatever it is. So don't be so, I have to have people in one big building and I need to pay rent for it. Be very careful of that. Tip number two, short or long lease. Hands down short. People say, oh, long, you'll get a better price. Nah, it's ridiculous. Everyone will rent to you. Everybody, if the building's vacant, they want a renter. They want a renter that's there, right? So if they get 1 year with 2 one-year options or 3 one-year options, that's what you need to do. Long-term leases are almost impossible to break. You might be able to find a subletter, but that's really hard. No one's motivated to get the building moved because it's already under lease. You need flexibility. If you get this financial strain because you said, I need a building, I need this, I need that, I want everybody in one room, I want a little conference table, I want to sit around and have conferences and act like the CEO. That's all fine down the road, but for now, reduce the risk, make sure your business is rock solid before you go get let the business drive the real estate. Don't let the real estate drive the business. So a couple things on leases. There's all kinds of weird terminology. Tip number 3 is triple net. It's called NNN, triple net lease. Low base rent, nice, kind of a teaser rate, but guess what? Nothing else is paid. The taxes, the CAM, which is common area maintenance for all buildings have it, property taxes, insurance, water, gas, that all gets added on. So sometimes you look at a lease and says, oh, it's $4 a square foot or $5 a square foot. Wow, that's cheap. I was looking at 6 or 7. It may be a net lease versus a gross lease, right? So a gross lease includes everything. The base and expenses. Sometimes it doesn't include utilities, but it's a solid number, and that's what you agreed to, and that's what you pay. So if taxes fluctuate or so forth, depending on your lease, it usually is included in the gross thing. But remember, leases are tricky. Dig into them. There's a bunch of outs. A lot of times people will have 3% increases built in there every year. So every year your rent goes up 3%. You got to read into that. Make sure you're not getting a teaser rate, and in a year from now, your rent goes through the roof. So be very careful about that. Tip number 5, what happens if you got to do a build out, right? You usually go into a place and it's not exactly what you want. There's no way. Who's going to pay for that? And then once it gets paid for, who owns the fixtures at the end? What happens if you put some desks or some shelving or whatever it is? Who's going to own that at the end? It has to be very clearly spelled out in the lease. Don't forget that because you can end up losing on that. Tip number 6, what if you want a sign up there? What if you want a big sign in front of your door? What if you want a sign on the road? What if you want a sign that changes constantly? Is that legit? Is that okay? Will the association approve it? What's the location of the sign? Hey, I want it right by the street so people know I'm there. Well, guess what? The village says that's a no-no. So make sure you do all your homework before you sign your lease. Tip number 7, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to do a personal guarantee, especially if you're starting out your business. You don't have real assets. The company doesn't have real assets. So remember, if the business fails, and your lease is $1,000 a month, you got 9 months left, you're on the hook for the $9 grand. So that's really, really painful, right? Think about that. Your business just failed. Now you got to come up with another $9 grand, or the landlord can sue you personally and he can go after your personal assets because you're going to have to personally guarantee. So be very, very careful when you sign your lease. Try to get short-term leases with a lot of outs and a lot of extensions. Tip number 8, escalation costs. Read everything through, because a lot of times there's clauses in there that says, hey, if taxes go up significantly or something else happens, you know, all kinds of things. So in long-term leases, it can be very, very costly to have these escalation clauses. They're in there all the time. So make sure you read it thoroughly. And make sure you get a lawyer to double check your lease before you sign your first ones, especially if you're not familiar with leases or looking and see how they are, because surprises are no fun. Just remember that. Negotiation tip. This works. It works 100% of the time. It just does, right? You can get free months out of your lease as opposed to a lower price. Here's why. The landlord wants to show comps, right? So when you go see your place, you're going to say, look, the guy next door is at 10 bucks a square foot. So you got to be at 10 bucks a square foot. They want it. They want that as their comps. What you can do is say, okay, I'll do 10 bucks a square foot, but I want 1 month free per year or 2 months free per year. You should get at least 1 month free per year of lease. And if you extend the lease, get another month free. They will negotiate pretty well with you of letting you have free months. In fact, when I started my leases, they let me in a month early. And we just put a little addendum on there. So I really got 2 months of free. So I could move in and I could actually start my business the next month. So make sure you negotiate free months. It's really easy to get. One last thing, when I relocated my business to a little bit out in the sticks, I lost 25% of my resumes that I used to get when I was hiring people. 25%, that's huge. So I'm looking for talent. We were in a growth mode, we're growing, which we're lucky to grow. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I used to get 150 resumes on every job I placed when I was in the other city. Now I'm getting 75, 80, 90, 100, 110. What's going on here? I lost people from a major metropolitan area because they felt where my office was too far of a drive. And it was only 7 miles. It was only 7 miles west of where I was. And I said to myself, what's going on here? I lost this big metropolitan area. I'm not getting any resumes from there. So remember, when you're acquiring talent, people only look so far. And if they think you're out in the sticks, they don't think you're a real business, they don't want to take the risk and go work for you. Now I moved back east a little bit. I'm closer to that major metropolitan area. And the amount of resumes we get for every ad now has gone up back to 25 to 30%, sometimes 50%. It's just a matter of the timing. But that's a big consideration if you're planning on hiring a lot of talent soon, that you're in a place that people will not have a problem getting to. Thank you.